Chapter 6 of Thunder Cave. My first stop was the bank. I had $1,800 in my savings account. I withdrew it all and closed the account. The next stop was the travel agency. I locked my bike outside and walked in. "How can I help you?" the woman at the counter asked. "I need a ticket to Nairobi, Kenya." "Really? Come back and we'll see what we can do." I followed her over to her desk and sat down. This was the first time I'd ever done anything like this, and I was a little nervous. But she didn't seem to care. "I need your name and address." I gave it to her. She typed it in her computer. "When would you like to leave?" "On the 13th, I said. "In 2 days?" "Right." "That's short notice," she said. "It's going to be expensive." I wasn't worried. I had $1,800 in my pocket. "When will you be returning?" she asked. I didn't know. "You want an open ticket then?" "I guess." "This is really going to cost a lot," she said, typing the information into the computer. "There's a flight leaving at 8 p.m. from Kennedy on the 13th. "That'll be fine," I said. "How much is it?" "Let's see. It comes to $1,964. "How much?" I was shocked. She repeated the price. I didn't have that much money, and I still needed to buy some things for the trip, besides having money for expenses when I got there. "Is that the best price?" "I'm afraid so," she said. "On such short notice, that's the best we can do." "What about a one-way ticket?" "That's less," she said, "but not a lot less. And Kenya won't give you a visa on a one-way ticket. They want to make sure you have transportation back out of the country." I didn't know what to do. I thought I would have plenty of money. The plan was falling apart. The woman looked at me, waiting for me to say something. "I guess I'll have to wait," I said. "Fine," she said. "There are plenty of seats. People aren't going to Kenya these days. You know there is a drought there, and the word we're getting is that country isn't all that safe." "Yeah, I heard." I got it from the chair. "I appreciate your help." "My pleasure." She stood up. "Why are you going to Kenya?" "To see my father." "Well, perhaps he can send you the money." "Yeah," I said, walking out of the office. I unlocked my bike, got on, and started back to the apartment. It was over before it began. Nice try, Jake. It looked like I was going to spend the next few years in Nebraska. I pedaled along slowly, trying to think of a way to get the money. As I rode, I saw a row of pawn shops across the street. I crossed over and stopped in front of one of them. The barred window was filled with musical instruments, cameras, stereo equipments, and jewelry. "Take anything you want to remember your mother by." She would have approved. I rode back to the apartment as fast as I could pedal. Inside, I went directly into my mother's bedroom. I hadn't been there since she had died. Sam had, though. Boxes filled with my mother's clothes covered the floor. On top of her dresser was a jewelry box. I picked up the box and poured the contents onto the bed. Among the jewelry was a very old amulet that Tall had given to my father, and my father had given to my mother. It was made out of a round flat stone, about the size of a quarter. There was a hole in the middle, and surrounding the hole was an intricately carved snake swallowing its tail. A leather thong was strung through the hole, so it could have been worn as a necklace. I looked at it for a long time. The amulet had been important to my parents and to Tall. I slipped it over my head and put it under my shirt. Having it against my chest seemed to make me feel better. It was as if my parents were close to me again. In the pile of jewelry, I found my mom's diamond, engagement, and wedding rings, the ones my father had given her. I also found the gold necklace with a small emerald that my mother's grandmother had given her. They're worth a fortune, but I wouldn't sell them for the world. I put the necklace and the rings in my pocket and left for the apartment. I'd never been inside a pawn shop. but I had a pretty good idea of how they worked. You gave them something of value, and they gave you a fraction of what it was worth, and the pawn ticket as a receipt. If you didn't buy your stuff back within a certain amount of time, then they sold it. I was the only customer. The things inside were all behind wire mesh, I guess to keep people from stealing them. As I walked up to the counter, I felt like I was an animal in the zoo. Or maybe the pawnbroker was the animal. The man was sitting in a small office in the back watching television. "Excuse me," I said. He got up from his chair very slowly and walked over to the counter. He was very tall, and his hair was braided in long dreadlocks. "What do you have?" he said. "Some jewelry," I said. "Let's see it." I put the rings and the necklace on the counter as he scooped them through the slot in the wire mesh. He took out a jeweler's magnifying glass and looked at the rings. Then he held the necklace under a bright light and examined it closely. "I'll give you $100, he said. "For all of them?" "Yeah, for all of them." $100 wouldn't do me any good. They're worth a lot more than that, I said. "Not to me," he said, and pushed them back through the slot. I thought about it for a moment. $1,900 wouldn't even pay for the airplane ticket. There wasn't any point. "Nice try, Jake." I picked up the things and turned to go. "Wait a second," the pawnbroker said. "Let me see those again." I turned and put them back on the counter. He pulled them back through the slot and looked at them again. "Where'd you get these things?" "My mom," I said. "She died." "Yeah, right," he said sarcastically. "She did." I felt anger well up inside. "When?" I took a deep breath. "On March 3rd, I said quietly. The pawnbroker looked at me for a moment. "When was the funeral?" "Sunday." "What's your name?" "Why?" "So I can check the obits." "Obits?" "The obituaries," he said. "I've got to make sure these things aren't hot." "I didn't steal them," I said, trying to control my anger. "Well, in our business, you can never be too sure. I got to check." "What was her name?" "Beth Walters," I said. He went back into his office, and I heard him rummaging around. After a moment, he came back holding a newspaper. "And what's your name?" "Jacob." He read from the newspaper. "She is survived by her husband, Samuel Walters, and her son, Jacob Lanza." He put the newspaper down. "Does your father know you're doing this?" "They're not his," I said. "I see," he said. "I'll give you $200. "No," I said. "That would get me the ticket, but I wouldn't have any money left." "This isn't going to work. Just give me back the stuff." He looked at me. "What's that around your neck?" The amulet was dangling outside of my shirt. "Just something from my dad." "Can I see it?" "It's not for sale," I told him. "I didn't say I wanted to buy it," he said. "I just want to look at it." I didn't see any harm in his looking at it. I took it off and handed it through the slot. He looked at it under the magnifying glass, then looked back at me. "I'll give you $300 for everything, including this." I thought about it for a moment, but something wasn't right. Something happened to me when I took the amulet off. I felt strange, uncomfortable. "No," I said, "it's not for sale." I put my hand out. "Do you know what that is?" "Do you know what this is?" "Something my grandfather had," I said impatiently. "I'd like it back now." "It's very old," he said. His attitude seemed to have softened a little. "It's a powerful symbol, but it has no real value." "It does to me," I said, still holding out my hand. He laughed. "I can see that," he said, looking at the amulet again. "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you $300 for the necklace and the ring." He handed the amulet back to me. I quickly put it back around my neck, and as soon as I did, I felt better. What was going on here? How could a piece of carved stone make me feel better? Magic? I remembered a disagreement my mom and dad had. all the magic can be explained in scientific terms. I don't think so, Beth. Literature is filled with examples of unexplained magic. That's right, Bob. Literature is fiction. Then why do the stories endure? Because people want to believe in miracles. It's why millions of people buy lottery tickets every day. Well, how about it, the pawnbroker asked, startling me. 300? I shouldn't even have offered you that much, he said. My boss isn't going to be happy. I thought about it. It wouldn't give me much money after I bought the ticket. With Sam's 60 and what I could scrape out of the house, I would have only about 200 to take with me to Africa. But it might work. Okay, I said reluctantly. He filled out the tickets and handed them to me. Look, kid, he said kindly. I don't know what you need the money for, but you have 6 months to redeem these tickets to get your mother's things back. Don't lose the tickets. I have a feeling that you're going to want these things back. He was right about that. I rode back to the travel agency and bought the airline tickets. And from there, I went to the Kenyan embassy to see about getting a visa. I need a visa, I said to the woman sitting at the information desk. Do you have a passport? I handed her my passport, and she looked at it very carefully, then back at me. How old are you? 14. You need your parents' permission. I have that, I said, and handed her the letter I'd written. She read the letter. I see, she said, without saying anything. About my mother dying. Room 39, she said, by the elevators. She handed the letter and passport back to me. My father had written to me about Kenyan bureaucracy. They make American bureaucrats look like amateurs. It's a religion to them, and they relish making you squirm with their squirts of power. I walked over to the door and knocked lightly. Come in. Sitting behind the large desk was an equally large man wearing a 3-piece suit. He smiled when I came in. Please sit down, he said slowly, motioning me to the chairs across from his desk. You want to go to Kenya? Yes, I said. When? On the 13th? He looked surprised. Of this month? Yes. We don't usually issue visas so quickly. I felt the plan coming apart again. I need to meet my father there, I said. I see, he said. I handed him the passport and the letter. What's this? He asked, holding the folded letter. It's from my father. He read the letter slowly, then looked at me. I am very sorry to hear about your mother. Thanks, I said. So you have no one to take care of you in New York? Not really, I said. Your father is a field biologist? Yes. He looked at me for a while without saying anything, which made me more nervous than I already was. I started to sweat and hoped he wouldn't notice. At the Wildlife Research Institute? Yes. He carefully went through a stack of papers on his desk until he found the one he was looking for. He read the paper carefully. This memo tells me that the Wildlife Research Institute has closed down. I didn't know what to say. I felt like running out of his office. I know, but my father is still working there. I see, he said. Do you have airline tickets? Yes. May I see them, please? I handed him the tickets. He took them out of the envelope and looked at them. Please wait here a moment, he said, then got up from the desk and left the office carrying the letter. My passport and the airline tickets. He had everything, so there wasn't any point in running, although I still felt like it. I wondered if I'd be able to cash the tickets back in. It didn't look like I was going to get a visa, and I couldn't get into the country without one. On the wall behind the desk, there was a large color photo of Daniel Arap Moi, the president of Kenya. It was a smaller version of the same photo in the embassy lobby. The night before, I had read that Moi had been in office since 1978, the year that Jomo Kenyatta died. Kenyatta became president in 1963 after 4 years of brutal fighting to win independence from Britain. The door opened behind me, and the man came in and sat back down. I will have to call the Wildlife Research Institute, he said. It's over, I thought. He packed up the phone and dialed the institute's number in Kenya. He smiled at me as he waited for the connection. Hello, yes, this is the Kenyan Embassy in New York. I'm looking for Dr. Robert Lanza. Yes? Is he there? Do you know when he'll be back? I see. I have his son in my office, and he's applying for a visa. I see. I wish